Hi guys, let's talk about the teams that have been eliminated from the World Baseball Classic. It looks like we know all 4 teams that are going to be eliminated from the group stage. Brazil, a particularly brutal showing. I was optimistic that they could maybe, give a good account of themselves against a couple of teams, but ultimately I think the offense just wasn't there. I don't know, again, having Leonardo Reginito at the 3-hitter, it's probably the weakest lineup outside of Czech Republic in the tournament. So in hindsight, Brazil were doomed from the start, and I don't think that a game against the U.S. to start out was just not a good thing. They had a strong start, which isn't surprising. A lot of the teams that got eliminated had strong starts. Nicaragua had a really strong start against the Dominican Republic. We'll get there. But Brazil had a strong start against the U.S., but ultimately the pressure of the U.S. of just facing those great hitters over and over again with these, respectively minor league pitching staff. I mean, Brazil had a 17-year-old out there against the USA in garbage time. Just walks upon walks upon walks. I think I got it wrong. I think if you include hit by pitches, it was 19. It's 17 walks and then 2 hit by pitches. So they gave 19 free passes during the game, which, it's a super careful approach from Brazil against the United States, which you understand it's literally necessary. It's the only choice that they have. And, it worked admirably for a while, but after a certain point, it's obviously just going to start to snowball, especially when, sometimes the guys are walking people because they're being really careful, and sometimes they're walking guys because they lost the zone. And late in the game there, some of those guys lost the zone. They weren't being careful. They couldn't throw strikes anymore. And then we'll talk about the Czech Republic next. And I think I had a decent read on the Czech Republic from the start of this tournament, unfortunately, and it wasn't an optimistic one. They're really the only team that you can safely say is a men's league level team in the entire tournament. A lot of guys there have day jobs, haven't played professional ball if they ever did in a while. Guys throwing 75, 70 miles an hour. It's charming, and it's a great part of the tournament, and I'd love to see teams like the Czech Republic back in the tournament and see if they can get any upsets in the future. But the truth is that there was never really, despite their reputation as a lovable underdog, there was never really a big historic upset for the Czech Republic like there's been for teams like the Netherlands in the past. It's not surprising. The Netherlands has a general higher level of players than the Czechs do. The Czech Republic's only win in the last 2 tournaments was against China, who were relegated themselves. And that's the sad truth about the Czech Republic. I think there's a lot of teams in qualifying who are probably going to be able to present stronger rosters than them. Germany especially comes to mind, Spain. There's teams in Europe that they'll have to qualify against who I think will be able to easily produce stronger teams. So I definitely question if the Czech Republic will be back here for a long time. I think it's maybe the last we've seen of the Czech Republic in the World Baseball Classic, sadly, for a while. And then before we get to Nicaragua, who are really the main team I wanted to talk about, quite tough luck, Panama also eliminated, tied on record with Colombia, but losing the tiebreaker. So Colombia won the head-to-head game earlier today, 4-3, and that basically kept them alive in the tournament. Panama gets eliminated by losing that game. They both finished 1-3, so a really tough luck out by Panama. I am stupid. I had both of those teams picked to get out of the group. I had Puerto Rico and Cuba to underperform, and that has not happened. They're both 2-0. They're going to play a very pivotal game tonight against one another that should be absolutely nuts. But both those teams in my mind have overperformed. I mean, Puerto Rico, especially in my mind, has overperformed to be 2-0. I think they have a pretty lackluster lineup compared to what most people expected. But you know what? They have that home crowd behind them, and I think they can achieve a lot of things in this tournament if they had that home crowd behind them the entire time. I think once they get out of there, if they have to head to a different stadium for the quarterfinals and the semifinals and they don't have that home crowd behind them, I don't know how well they're going to play. But that enthralling Darnell Hernai's walk-off home run, again, 2 walk-off home runs on the same day after having no walk-off home runs in tournament history. And, the most brutal one was, that was the most brutal moment of the tournament. I was rooting so hard for Nicaragua in that game to get their first ever WBC win. And now they're relegated and they're going to have to re-qualify in a tough region, Central America, Latin America. They can do it, though. They're a strong baseball country. They have some really great players on that team. I think they can at least come back for future WBCs if they don't specifically re-qualify next time. I'm less worried about them than the Czech Republic, but it's heartbreaking that they just can't get a win, and especially in the way that they lost. The second that ball hit the bag, man, I knew that was going to happen. The second you see something like that in baseball, you know that the luck in the game has turned, and that the next big thing that needs to go right for Nicaragua is not going to go right. And that big blast from Ozzie Albies, all the outrage over the announcer getting the call wrong, but I could criticize it. I didn't like it either, but the truth is I thought it was the top of the ninth too. It was just one of those situations in the World Baseball Classic where the home crowd really was for Nicaragua. Actually, Nicaragua had a lot more support in the crowd in the stadium, and it was people were really pulling for Nicaragua in that stadium to win that game. So that home run kind of took the air out of the crowd, and that's not what you would traditionally expect for a walk-off home run. So you can't really blame the announcer for just saying takes the lead instead of wins the game. So I think that was a little bit of overblown outrage there. But I just wanted to talk actually more about the teams that got relegated from the WBC, because to me, that's something I watch for every single time. It's something that I always pick. You know, I controversially picked Cuba to get relegated, I think, in my predictions. And, you know, that's not going to happen. That's a great thing. I'm glad Cuba's going to be back. Cuba should, one of those countries that kind of should have an automatic spot in the tournament, really. I mean, behind, like, if you would give automatic spots in the tournament, which, of course, like, shouldn't be a thing, but if you were going to, probably U.S., Japan, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, there are a few countries that deserve, you know, an automatic spot just for their tradition and their history with baseball, and Cuba is definitely one of them, especially just for a history of having great players outside the baseball establishment. You know, if you want to know who the best player outside of Major League Baseball is, it's usually somebody playing in Cuba, someone from Cuba playing in the Mexican League is the traditional answer to that question, or in Japan, it seems like to me. But yeah, there's always a lot of unknown quantities on Cuba, so it's great to see them perform well, and I'm very excited for this Cuba versus Puerto Rico game. I've been doing these live streams where I score the games. I may do one for Cuba versus Puerto Rico. I probably won't be able to do one for the entirety of USA versus Mexico, but we'll see. I've been having a lot of fun doing these streams, and I'll probably be online for one tomorrow if there's a game that really piques my interest, so stay tuned for those, and like and subscribe, everybody, for more baseball content. I will be back on the next one. I'm still sad for Nicaragua, especially, definitely, and I'm sad that we're not going to get to see the Czech Republic, but I am excited to see which team from the European region takes over for them, if that is how it works. I think, like I said, there are some countries in Europe that could put together pretty decent teams with these super lenient registration rules, you know. So yeah, like and subscribe for more, and I'll be back on the next one.